Ladies and gentle gamers, welcome back to Be Determined. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the different ways to grind powder, starting off with Mithril Powder, and then we're going to get to Gemstone and Glacite as well. But if you guys end up enjoying the video, please make sure to drop a like, smash the sub button if you haven't already. We're on our way to 15,000 subscribers, and every single subscription is absolutely free, and it helps me out so much. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So before we jump into the different methods, I do want to talk about all the things you can do to buff your Mithril Powder gain. In spite of whichever method you use, these buffs will occur and help you out a lot, no matter how you're gaining the powder. The first helper is, of course, the Mithril Golem. The Mithril Golem's third ability, the Smell of Powder, grants an additional 20% Mithril Powder from all sources. It's okay to get a level 1, they're only 4.5 million coins off the auction house, and seeing as you'll probably end up doing commissions one way or another, you'll probably level it up really quickly. To buy a level 100, it costs 30 million coins right now, so I wouldn't really recommend doing that. Just get a level 1, it's a lot cheaper and it's very easy to level. But that's a 20% Mithril Powder boost from that source. The next source is, of course, the Mithril Drill. This one's a bit more expensive as well. It costs about 30 million coins to get a clean Mithril Drill right now. But this is the R326 Mithril Drill, which grants a total of 40% extra Mithril Powder. So this, combined with the Mithril Golem, is an additional 60% Mithril Powder. And there's another boost you can get on the drill itself, which is the Spicy Goblin Omelet. This thing costs about 18.5 million coins right now, but you earn an additional 20% powder from all sources. So this is going to be extra powder for gemstones, glacite, and mithril as well. So even though it's a little bit pricey right now, it's definitely worth it. There's also a new NPC here called Brynmore, who is at the pub. So you can see you spawn right there. You just walk forward. It's right next to the bank. And you can go talk to this guy and be able to buy a powder pumpkin, which gives you 5% extra mithril powder for an hour. It costs 50,000 coins, but it's definitely worth it. So that makes it a total of about 85% extra mithril powder if you have all these perks. I know it's pretty expensive to get all those items, but it really is worth it if you're going to try and go for like 10 mil mithril powder. You can always sell them back to Bazaar or the auction house if you ever decide to get rid of them, but they're definitely worth holding on to for a little bit at least, just so you can get your powder up. Now there's one more boost I want to talk about before we get into the Heart of the Mountain stuff, which is the Dwarven Treasure. This is a brand new reforged stone that drops from doing different events in the Dwarven Mines, and it gives an additional 5% powder from events in the Dwarven Mines. So if you ever are grinding those for powder, that's one of the methods we'll talk about in a moment, then it's good to have this on your equipment. It is a reforged for equipment, so no matter the rarity of the equipment, it gives the same amount of additional mithril powder. So even if you put it on an ender set, it's very cheap to get, and it's really nice. So those are all of the buffs to mithril powder outside of the Heart of the Mountain tree. So we're going to jump into the tree now. There's two separate trees for mithril powder grinding that I'm going to show you. And the first one here is for goblin egg grinding. Now this tree is extremely cheap. It does require you to be Heart of the Mountain 7, but I generally recommend that you get to Heart of the Mountain 7 before you really start investing into powder grinding. But this tree only costs about 1.5 million mithril powder and about 2.7 million gemstone powder. And that's because the only things you need to upgrade for getting golden goblins is Luck of the Cave and Powder Buff. Now this tree I'm showing uses about 14 total tokens. You don't need the titanium and sanium here, I just kind of have that for extra. But if you're Heart of the Mountain 7 and Core of the Mountain 7, you should have a total of about 17 tokens of the mountain, in which case if you don't have titanium and sanium, you'll be able to go ahead and go over and get daily powder as well. So that's a good thing to have. We just have these just cuz. But the strategy when it comes to golden goblin grinding is you want to have the Sky Mall perk, because one of the possible buffs is this 10 times chance to find golden and diamond goblins. And so you'll basically just be grinding other things besides mining. And when you ever see the Sky Mall perk change to 10x goblin chance, that's when you start to try and find a lobby that has 2x powder. If you can get 2x powder plus the 10x goblin chance to proc at the exact same time, then the amount of powder you get from this is absolutely insane. It is a little bit expensive because you do of course have to buy quite a few stacks of goblin eggs to just spam and throw, but if you're killing them with the mithril drill and getting that additional 40% mithril powder, plus if you have the omelet getting the additional 20% from that as well, that's an additional 60%, plus you're spawning so many goblins, and if it's a 2x powder, it's just absolutely crazy how much you get. And that is why Luck of the Cave needs to be maxed, so you get more golden goblins to spawn. And that is also why we have the Anomalous Desire, pickaxe ability chosen because it increases your chances of spawning golden goblins by 40% for 30 seconds. Now this spot is the best place to do golden goblins at. There's this little 1x1 hole. It's not the only place on the map to do it, but it is the spot that I've been using. But if you're wondering, the ramparts are right here. So if you're in the ramparts quarry, the upper mines are up there. You just go down through this entrance here, and then to the left and look up, there's a minecart. If you get up here, there's this 1x1 hole right there, and you just look down and spam goblin eggs. And if you do spawn multiple on top of each other, then they'll generally both just fall into the hole just like that. And now you don't have to worry about them like walking through walls or anything like with a lot of other places. But generally, if you're going to do the golden goblin strategy, then there is a chance there's no 2x powder in the dwarven mines. So in that case, you can just go to the crystal hollows and dig out a 1x1 hole if you want to. You can even do a little 2x2 pit just like this and just throw in the goblin eggs and then jump down and kill them. As you can see, there's a 2x powder in the lobby I'm in right now, but if we go over to the dwarven mines, there is not a 2x powder. So you may have to do it here, you may have to do it in the crystal hollows, whichever one works for you. Just whichever one has 2x powder, you know, just try and do it there. But generally, if you're doing this strategy, then you're not actively mining. It's just whenever you see that you have that perk, you'll just warp to a lobby and hope that there's a 2x powder, spend some money, get some powder pretty easily. If you want to actively mine them, like while doing commissions and making money from mining, there's a different tree you'll need to use and some different strategies. You can still use all those upgrades as well as that treasure reforge on your equipment. That will help a lot too, but you're going to want to focus mainly on titanium and sanium with this build. And also, I recommend getting Picobulus. It's going to help you do your commissions a lot faster as well. Just every 60 seconds, you'll be able to go and throw Picobulus and get like half or a whole commission completed just off of that. You also want efficient miner, so that mining spread will help you out a lot with doing your commissions. As always, powder buffs very important. And then you'll want to do a nice little sideways eye shape just like this. This is 16 total tokens spent, so if you only have 15, then of course don't prioritize daily powder. You can just get rid of that. It's not that helpful compared to having extra mining fortune or extra mining speed. But if you have your core of the mountain all the way up to level 7, then you get 2 extra tokens of the mountain to spend. Probably still don't want daily powder, honestly. We can just get rid of that and instead go for old school and sky mall. That way with sky mall, you'll still have a chance to get that 15% more powder while mining, and even the 20% pickaxe ability cooldown is really nice. Pretty much every perk in here is good when you're going for powder, so sky mall is really good to have. Now, if we're gonna hypermax this tree, it's gonna cost a lot of powder. It's gonna be a total of 11 mil of each type of powder, so you are going to need a large amount if you're going to max it out, but you don't need to max it out. I just recommend prioritizing titanium and sanium pretty well. That'll help you get your titanium commissions done. Efficient miner, though, is the most important. So prioritize efficient miner first, then titanium and sanium. And after that, you can worry about the mining fortune and then mining speed from these two. And when it comes to gemstone powder, prioritize powder buff, and then you can worry about the fortunate mine man and then speedy mine man. Now again, I misclicked. You really don't want to get the daily powder buff here unless you're heart of the mountain 8 and you have the extra tokens. But if you're heart of the mountain 7 and you've got core of the mountain 7, you should be able to build this tree minus the daily powder. Basically, what you'll do with this tree is just do your commissions as you get them. If a dwarven event pops up, make sure to participate in that. Also, if a powder gas spawns, make sure to go get those. They give triple the mithril powder they used to, so they're pretty good now. But yeah, main thing is participating in events, doing your commissions, and of course, mining lots of mithril. Also, I didn't mention it earlier, but having a fuel tank on your drill will help out quite a lot. It'll make your ability cool down quite a bit faster, so if you have extra money to invest, that's a good thing to invest in. If not though, it's fine. Now, if you go to your commission milestones, they did recently add a new item called the Royal Compass that just points you to the closest emissary that you can talk to. So that is really helpful. Also, as you get your milestones done, you'll unlock more rewards like commission slots, which are very helpful. And the Royal Pigeon is like almost necessary after you get to a certain point. So having the Royal Pigeon, even if you have the Abbey phone contact, the Royal Pigeon doesn't like have the ring talking in the chat. So for instance, if I go ahead and call Queen Mismilla, which you can get if you have the Royal Pigeon, it rings 3 times in the chat before I can actually pick up and claim the extra powder I get from these commissions. But if you just use a Royal Pigeon, then that's going to be a lot easier to do. You won't have to worry about the ringing in the chat. And if you already turned in your Royal Pigeon to the Queen NPC to get her contact, it's okay. You can just warp over to the gold mine and talk to the janitor here, and he sells the Royal Pigeon for like 10,000 coins. So very easy to reacquire one if you've already turned it in. Now, if you're wondering about wearing the mineral armor set, is that going to help you? Sadly, no. If we look at its description, it gives mining spread, but it's only on ores and blocks. So when it comes to mining for mithril powder, it doesn't help because mithril blocks actually count as dwarven metals instead of ores. So unfortunately, the mineral gear does not work on it. However, it does work for the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is gemstone powder grinding. For gemstone powder grinding, you're going to want pretty much the exact same tree, except if you are Heart of the Mountain level 8, you have a couple extra tokens to spend. So instead of getting titanium, insanium, and picobulus, you'll instead want seasoned mineman and front loaded. It's just a small boost. The extra gemstone powder for the first 2,500 gemstones you mine every day does come in a little bit handy. You're not really going to be prioritizing them, but sometimes you may accidentally mine one. You're also going to want to make sure you max out Great Explorer. This is the most important perk whenever you're mining for gemstones because it boosts your chance to find treasure chests, and it also reduces the amount of locks on chests by 5. So with this, you can just right click chests and be able to get stuff really easily. Now with this tree, you don't really need to worry about the mining speed or the mining fortune that much. The main thing is efficient miner. That's what you'll need to focus on with your mithril powder. Mole is also very important. That's what you'll need to focus on with gemstone powder for quite a bit. And of course, the powder buff and Great Explorer. Mainly Great Explorer. Great Explorer is the most important perk out of all these. If you don't have enough powder to max out Great Explorer and anything else, main thing is to max out Great Explorer. And then prioritize Mole and powder buff. Then we go for daily powder, subterranean fissure, blockhead, and daily grind. You'll want to max out blockhead just for that extra fortune while mining hardstone. It does help out quite a bit there. Also, you can get seasoned mineman and front loaded. So you just get some extra gemstone powder if you accidentally mine a few gemstones that day. And of course, Sky Mall is still very important. So you will need to get Old School and then Sky Mall. Now this tree does use 16 tokens of the mountain, so you can get it if you're Heart of the Mountain tier 7 with Core of the Mountain level 5, or if you've gotten to Heart of the Mountain tier 8, you should be fine to get it as well. Now I haven't chosen an ability here because honestly none of the abilities really help that much. You already should be insta mining the hardstone. Picobulus doesn't really help that much, and everything else just gives like fortune or rare occurrences, and there's not really any rare occurrences that you need. Chest spawning doesn't count as a rare occurrence, so none of the abilities really help with this unless you've gotten to Heart of the Mountain tier 10, in which case getting the sheer force ability is pretty nice to get some extra mining spread. That does help quite a bit, but that's definitely not required to do this build. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and max out mining fortune as well. And if you have 17 tokens, you can get the fortunate mine man to get some extra mining fortune from here, but it's definitely not required. But if you do all that, then this tree requires 17 tokens of the mountain, 15.8 million gemstone powder, and 6.7 million mithril powder to max. Again, it's not very important to get the extra fortunate mine man if you can't afford it. Don't worry about it. Also, the seasoned mine man and front loaded, also not very important, so don't need to prioritize that either. But getting a jasper drill is helpful for this. The jasper drill is pretty much the same thing as the mithril drill is for gemstones. So it only gives 20% extra gemstone powder instead of the 40% that mithril gives, but it is still helpful. It does cost like twice as much though. It's 70 million coins. So that's a little bit pricey, but it does help. There's also a few other pets that will help you with getting extra powder. The expensive option is the Skatha. It grants an extra chance to find treasure chests, so that's extremely helpful. And the Bejeweled Eyes perk gives extra gemstone powder, so also very helpful. But if you can't afford the nearly 400 mil price tag on this pet, don't worry about it. The armadillo pet is also very good. It grants an additional 300 mining spread while mining hardstone, and that's even if you're not riding the pet. So if I just have the pet equipped and I go over here and I start mining hardstone, we have a ton of mining spread, so we should be fine. I am still wearing the mithril gear, so that does help quite a bit, but you can see we're mining so many blocks whenever we just casually mine around here, and I'm pretty sure that we are kind of close to the cap. I don't know. If we look inside the stats themselves, it says we only have 300 mining spread, and it's only counting it from the efficient miner perk, and it caps at 10k. But we do have more from the mineral chest plate, giving us extra mining spread on ores and blocks. We have another 300 as well from using the armadillo pet, so that's 900 more. So we should have about 1.2 thousand mining spread from those things alone. And then we can go ahead and calculate in the Heart of the Mountain perk, which gives another 400 on hardstone. So that's 1.6k total mining spread, which as you can see is pretty good. Now, of course, you probably don't want to mine with an actual drill. If you have a gemstone gauntlet or some other mining tool that can break hardstone, as long as it insta breaks, it's fine. It's just these do use fuel, and since you're not using a pickaxe ability, the pickaxe ability cooldown on the fuel tank is not worth saving your time for. So I don't recommend worrying about that too much. But that was with Armadillo Pet. If we go ahead and swap to the Scatha Pet, we should see a decent increase in how many chests we're spawning. Yeah, you can already tell we just spawned like 6 chests back to back. So Scatha Pet's definitely worth investing in. We can just go ahead and just right click on these and get a ton of essence and stuff. But that brings us to the last powder, which we're gonna have to swap armors for. Go to Devon Armor for the Glacite Powder. Now for Glacite Powder grinding, I'm just gonna pretend that we all have max Core of the Mountain and max Heart of the Mountain, because realistically you shouldn't really be focusing too much on powder before that point. But the main way to grind this powder is going to be by doing commissions and then getting into mine shafts. Sometimes commissions will have you go into mine shafts already, but a lot of times it's just going to be doing some other casual things like getting peridot gemstones or mining tungsten. But yeah, sometimes it's get frozen corpses, which is only in mine shafts, or slay 10 maniacs in the mine shafts. So as you can see, at its base, these give 1,000 powder each. Unfortunately, there's not too many upgrades to get extra Glacite Powder compared to Mithril or Gemstone. The best way right now is, of course, still using that spicy Goblin omelet. That does give 20% extra powder to Glacite as well, and using a Glacite Golem, because that gives 20% more powder from most sources. So most of the time what you'll want to do is have a Scatha Pet equipped while you're grinding things. So if I'm doing the commissions, like I need to go collect tungsten, I'll have the Scatha Pet equipped, maybe have a set of pet rules for whenever I have the Hellfire Rod out, and just go mine tungsten. And then after I've mined it, it takes me really long because I don't have my Heart of the Mountain tree set up. But once we have the tungsten collector stuff done, we can go ahead and set up our pet rules real quick so that when I throw a fishing hook, it equips my Scatha Pet, unless we add the rule exception and make it so that if my Scatha Pet is already equipped, it doesn't equip it again. And then we do pretty much the same thing for the Glacite Golem. Whenever we have the Glacite Golem on the fishing hook, it's not going to equip the Glacite Golem again as well. So right there. So now it has the rule exception. So if we have the pet equipped, it's not going to swap to that pet. So now when I throw out the fishing rod, it equips our Golem. If I throw it again, it equips our Scatha again, Golem again, Scatha. So whenever we are mining, we'll have the Scatha equipped like we do now. And then whenever we claim the commissions, normally using a Royal Pigeon, which I don't have on me right now, but again, use Royal Pigeon instead of the Abbey phone. We'll swap to our Golem before we call in, and then we can claim the commission with the Golem to get that additional Glacite Powder. And then swap back to the Scatha when we go back to mining. But let's go ahead and set up our Heart of the Mountain tree for this. So the main things here is, of course, going to be mining speed, mining fortune. Efficient miner is very helpful as always. We will go ahead and go for mining speed on gemstones and mining fortune on gemstones as well. And we're going to max out like pretty much everything here. You don't really need to max out mole. It's not that important here, but it does help out with mine shafts. So we're not really going to be spending gemstone powder on too much else. So hopefully if you're Glacite mining, you have a decent amount of gemstone powder already and you'll be able to afford to max out mole. But we're going to have every single thing that we've picked so far maxed out. Then we'll go for heat resistance and of course the powder buff. We'll get steady hand, rags to riches, pristine. We still have 14 tokens left, so we can get pretty much anything we want here. So we'll get cold resistance, get surveyor. This is very important. The dead men's chest, also very important, and gifts from the departed. We're also going to go for strong arm, no stone unturned, and metalhead. We're also going to go for the eager adventurer, mineshaft mayhem, and we still have 4 tokens left. So we're going to get speedy mine man, fortunate mine man, titanium insanium, and picobulus. I recommend getting Picobulus because it just makes commissions a lot easier. It doesn't proc pristine, but every 50 seconds, again, you can just go right click and get like half a commission or a whole commission completed just like that. So this is our tree fully maxed out. This is the bottom section and this is the top section. For this section, I have 8.5 million Mithril Powder spent, 14 million Glacite Powder spent, and 22.4 million Gemstone Powder spent, as well as all 25 tokens of the mountain used. Now, I didn't mention this earlier in the other sections, but having your core of the mountain maxed out is really helpful. And depending on which powder you're grinding, it does help a lot with getting extra powder. So having the base Mithril powder when mining Mithril is really helpful. You unlock that at peak of the mountain or core of the mountain level 4. You You unlock the extra Gemstone Powder at level 6 and the extra Glacite at level 8. But the 10% chance for extra Mineshafts is also really important, as well as the 2 extra tokens, and you get those at level 9, and then the tokens are at level 10. It is very expensive to max out Core of the Mountain. It costs 3 million Glacite Powder to get from level 7 all the way up to level 10, but it's worth it. And again, I do still have 7 million powder left over. I haven't spent it on anything else in here because none of this really helps us with the powder grind. You can still go ahead and put some in No Stone Unturned if you're on Iron Man, but if you're not, I recommend going for Gifts from the Departed. I don't think this gives extra powder from frozen corpses, but it does help you make a little bit more money. And then Rags to Riches is pretty decent. Eager Adventure is pretty good. These will help if you get a mineshaft that has one of the things that you need for your commissions. So if I have a Peridot commission and I get a mineshaft that has Peridot, cool, I can go ahead and get that done a little bit faster than I could in the tunnels. But Gemstone Spread's also pretty good to get, but as you can see, I'm already out of powder. For the record, I have like 21 million Glacite Powder or something, and I still can't max all this stuff out right now. Maybe they'll add an update in the future where they make it cheaper, but meh, I guess we'll see. But the main strat that you're going to want to employ here is, again, doing those commissions like I talked about earlier. There is also the option of just not even doing commissions and just mining Glacite, and we got 3.7 thousand Glacite Powder right now. If we mine another block, it's 3.795, so we get like 60 powder per block thanks to the extra mining spread that we have, so that's pretty decent. And then we just throw Picobulus, we got another 1,000 just from doing that. So just using Picobulus on the Glacite itself honestly can be even better than doing it to complete a commission. But aside from mining in the tunnels, actually spawning the mine shafts is very important. You do get a lot more powder now from the Glacite corpses themselves. So the Umber and Tungsten corpses are, of course, good to spend keys on if you want to. They generally lose about a mil per key is kind of how I have calculated it. But they give a minimum of 5,000 total Glacite Powder, and that's at the base. So if you have the extra buffs like we talked about with Glacite Golems and the powder buff in Heart of the Mountain Tree, then they give even more at their base minimum, and they normally max out at 10k, but that max also increases based on how much your buff is. So with all of the extra perks and things, you can probably get up to like close to, if not higher than 20,000 Glacite Powder per corpse opened, and that's the ones that cost keys, the Tungsten and Umber ones. The Lapis ones give 1,000 to 2,000 at their base as well, so the free ones are still very, very good to open too, which is why we would prioritize trying to get mine shafts. Trying to spawn one right now, I'm just kind of unlucky. But yeah, normally you would focus on the commissions. If I go ahead and grab my Royal Pigeon, I currently need to get Citrine and some Umber, Peridot. So knowing where all the locations for the different commissions are is also very important. I have all the locations for the waypoints right here. I might be missing a couple of them, but this shows where everything should be. I think Citrine and one of the Aquamarine and Onyxes are all swapped around now, so this isn't exactly up to date. This is the locations of everything here on the right side, but it may not be exactly up to date on what is there. I know they've changed a few things around as of today or yesterday. Like if we go over here to Onyx number 2, you'll notice this is now actually Aquamarine, and if we go up to Aquamarine number 2 here, this one is actually Citrine, so I need to change around some of the names and stuff. But you get the point. There's a mineshaft, finally. So if we jump into a mineshaft, we can look in tab and see what we got. We have a Lapis corpse and an Umber corpse in here. So what will really help out with this as well is making sure to grab some Ascension ropes so you can get out of the mineshafts quicker without having to go back to the entrance every time. So we can just go around in here. There's an Umber corpse here. I would open that if I had a key. But since I don't, we're just going to go for the Lapis corpse. So it's spawned right here. Going to go ahead and open that. We got 3,000 powder from that, so not too bad. But now that we've got it, we don't want to go back to the entrance. We're just going to use our Ascension rope, go ahead and get out. And since we got out, we got an extra amount of powder for that as well. So I don't recommend sticking around inside the mineshafts. Just kind of go in, open the corpses, get out. Unless you have a commission to do specifically in there, then it's kind of just get out as fast as you can. Doing this with the party is also very helpful, so you can have up to 4 total people inside your mineshaft party, and the more people, the more mineshafts get spawned and the more corpses that you're allowed to open. It's not just the spawner that can open corpses, everyone can open corpses. The only thing that's limited to the spawner is if there's a crystal that got spawned inside of the mine shaft, only the spawner gets access to the crystal. But there is one other strat for Glacite Powder that is still pretty powerful. The admins nerfed it pretty substantially when it first came out, but it's still really good today. And that strategy is, of course, suspicious scraps. Right now they're going for about 350k a piece, but basically what you do here is you'll wait until there's a 2x powder and then buy like a stack or half a stack of these. We're just gonna buy like 2 or 3, but you'll need to get a decent chisel to use with this, and you can put 4 different types of gemstones on here. Citrine gives a chance to highlight treasures, aquamarine adds an extra charge, onyxes give bonus treasures, and paradots give bonus fossil dust. The main ones that most people will use is the citrine or the aquamarine. Those just help you get more loot in general, but chisels are kind of expensive, so getting into this method does cost a bit, but they go in museum anyway, so if you're going for SkyBlock XP, it's helpful. But again, this is just another option. You don't have to do this, but I'll just go ahead and show how it works. You'll start the excavator, and I have a mod that tells me the ideal route to go to see if there's any fossils inside of this. If you find a fossil, of course, it's good to go for it, just because if there is one, then they generally pay for at least one of your scraps, if not multiple of them. So if you get lucky enough to find one, then that's pretty good. But there we go. There's 3,000 Glacite Powder right there. And unfortunately, we didn't get too lucky with this one. We just got 3,000 powder out of that one. But if it was a 2x powder, that'd be 6,000 powder that we just paid 300k for, which is pretty good compared to opening the chests inside of the mine shafts or the corpses. Generally, those give just a little bit over 2k depending on what pets you have. I don't have any of my buffs active right now except for the powder buff, of course, but you get the idea. There's another 4,000 right there in this one. If you get lucky and find more than one, of course, they can have more than 4,000. Sometimes they have less than 1,000, but if you've got some extra perks and stuff to get extra stuff, it can be worth it, especially during 2x powder. But hey, there you go. We just found the T-Rex fossil, I think is what this one is. So even though we don't get any powder out of this, we did get a footprint fossil, which is 500k, so that paid for that scrap and half of another one. But that should be everything with powder grinding. I know it was a long video, but hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, please make sure to drop a like, smash the sub button if you haven't already. We're on our way to 15,000 subs as of me recording this, and it'd really help out if you smash that sub button. But let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Make sure to check the pinned comment, because if something gets updated or changed, I'll probably have a pinned comment about it there, or it's very possible that I did forget something. This is a very large game, so please forgive me if that does happen, but make sure to check the pinned comment. I'll try and keep things that I missed in there. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Have an amazing rest of your day, and God bless.